Former Finance Minister Ken Ofori Atta has sued two security operatives, DSP Bismarck Boache Ansa and Chief Inspector Mensah, also known popularly as Sir Mensah, for trespassing and violating his right to privacy. The writ filed on Monday, 10th March 2025, was premised on the invasion of security operatives, some in military and police uniforms, who allegedly raided his residence at Laboni on Tuesday, February the 11th, 2025, in the presence of his wife and other family members when he was reportedly out of the country. Security footage that surfaced after the incident captured about 12 persons, 5 in military uniforms, 1 person in uniform police, and the rest in plain clothes, including Richard Jakpa, Director of Special Duties at the National Security. You recall that before that CCTV footage, there were claims that that invasion was orchestrated by the Special Prosecutor Kisia Jabing. A day after, he held a press conference denying any involvement. And later, that was when the CCTV footage came in. Now, my colleague Kwame Ochijinia has joined me in studio with excerpts of that writ that has got a lot of people talking on social media. KOJ, let's look at the statement of claim. What exactly is Ken Ofori Atta saying?
Well, the plaintiff claims against the defendant jointly and severally as follows: a declaration that the defendant's entry upon the conduct of a search on plaintiff property with house number, well, just like you mentioned. Well, let me move on. Damages for trespass, aggravated damages for breach of privacy, perpetual injunction restraining the defendant, whether by themselves, agents assigned, from entering upon plaintiff's property, and or further breaching plaintiff's privacy or repeating similar or other conduct against the plaintiff. Well, let me move on. The plaintiff, another statement of claim: plaintiff inter alia as a former Minister of Finance and Economic Planning for the Republic of Ghana, and was at material times entitled to the possession of all that property with house number Laboni, Accra. Plaintiff says that all the material, times, and property was at his instance under the care and control of his domestic staff, and he was temporarily out of the jurisdiction on medical treatment. On 11th February 2025, the first and second defendant, together with some 12 others, collectively called the raiding team without prior notice to and or the consent of the plaintiff, and of any legal basis entered the property and conducted an extensive search thereof. The subject of the search was not disclosed. The raiding team comprised the defendant, 9 military personnel carrying assault rifles and other I'm not getting the word well, Menansini looking individuals in plain clothes, some of who carried sidearms on their bodies. The raiding team did not produce any form of warrant, nor indicate to the plaintiff's domestic staff the basis for the search, but warned the domestic staff to desist from using their mobile phones throughout the entire period of the unauthorized operation. The plaintiff's domestic staff, with morbid fear and intense trepidation, looked on helplessly as the raiding team searched the nooks and crannies of the property, including but not limited to the compounds, bedrooms, open spaces, kitchen, drawers, fridge, freezer, cupboards, closets, plates, and car. A member of the raiding team, who doubled as a videographer, filmed with a cell phone all the spaces in the property, including bedrooms, living areas, the kitchen, and other private spaces. Plaintiff's domestic staff were thereby traumatized and have sustained varying degrees of severe shock as a result. Plaintiff says the conduct of the defendants and their cohorts was in the circumstance trespassory and invasive of plaintiff's property and privacy rights. Plaintiff says further that the raid on the property, which gained notoriety both domestically and internationally, has not only exposed him to public ridicule, resentment, and scorn, but also portrayed him as a criminal. And this has negatively impacted his hard-earned reputation in the international community.
Remember, he was Minister of Finance International.
Sure. Yeah, sure. So the plaintiff, through his lawyers, has sought confirmation from the officers of the National Intelligence Bureau, the Chief of Defence Staff, and the Inspector General of Police whether or not the raiding team acted at their instance and the purpose thereof, but no response thereto has been received. By reason of the matters aforesaid, the plaintiff has suffered great anxiety and distress, and in the premises has suffered loss and damage as well. Plaintiff says that the defendant will not refrain from further interference with his property and privacy rights unless restrained by the courts. Plaintiff avers further that the defendant will not compensate him for their unlawful act unless compelled to do so by the courts. Well, wherefore plaintiff claims against the defendant jointly and severally are per this rates of summons.
So that's why he's gone to court.
Yeah.
And then that's why he's demanding certain things. A declaration that the defendant's entry upon and conduct of a search on the plaintiff's property is a breach, was trespassory and a breach of plaintiff's right to privacy, damages for trespass, aggravated damages for breach of privacy, and perpetual injunction restraining the defendants, whether by themselves or their assigns, from entering upon plaintiff's property and others. So these are what he's demanding, and also costs. But he talks about loss of damage and the loss the damage has caused, but he didn't state here the exact loss,
sure.
aside from saying the anxiety
and distress
that the staff have faced. So let's try and get some understanding of all these legal things. KOJ, grateful for the excerpt of that rate. In case you want to read the full rate, it's on classfmonline.com. You can get a copy for yourself. We are joined by a constitutional lawyer, Mr. Paul Kumi. Mr. Kumi, good evening to you. Thank you very much for your time tonight on 505.
Good evening.
There's something going on social media. I mean, when they saw this rate, people are angry. They are like, this man is talking about breach of privacy. What is more egregious than you, giving a haircut, people's money without prior notice, refusing to give to them? And so, why would you, go to court? People were using the word the temerity and all that. When I saw this, it just brought to mind the event that happened after the special prosecutor had invited Charles Bissiou and issued an arrest warrant for him. And when Charles Bissiou went to court to get an injunction from the Accra High Court, presided over by Justice Nicholas Abudakpi, on June 15, 2023. The special prosecutor, in response to that injunction, said something that if care is not taken, we'll get to a point where somebody who is being accused of something can go to the court and prevent law enforcers from doing their lawful duty. Now, the former finance minister is going to court seeking a restraining order to restrict these persons and their assigns from doing anything like that. Is it similar? Are we heading there from what's happening?
No, we are not there yet, even though you can see some few signs of people who may wish they had that opportunity. Let me also say that the present rate has nothing to do with whatever crime Furiata might have committed. So to Ghanaians who think that his administration as the finance minister has wreaked some pain or had resulted in people losing their monies and related issues, no matter how serious those things are, the issue of law will have to be complied with, no matter the magnitude of the crime. So that Ofori Atta, as an individual, will have to have his human rights respected. His property, his privacy, and all other things as enshrined in the Constitution remain his bona fide property. And so if anybody wants to have any dealing with those particular property, it will need his formal knowledge, not necessarily consent.
Okay.
It will need his formal knowledge, or there must be the law which compels him to subsume or comply with the directive as given by the law for something which privately even belongs to him to be assessed by the state security. Now, what is an issue here is the fact that the NIB raided his private property without a warrant. Now, I have heard you make mention of various claims that were made by those persons who were in the house. As to the truthfulness or otherwise of these things, I believe that when we get to the court, those issues will come out and to be established. But let it be made clear that if any private individual's property is to be raided by way of a search, there must be a search warrant. That is the formal authorization giving whoever wants to get into the house of that private individual the right to do so. If you don't have that warrant, that will be wrong thing to do.
Does that apply in all cases that you must have a search warrant?
Not necessarily. Indeed, if the police has suspicion that a certain crime is being undertaken in that particular property, they wouldn't need a warrant to, as it were, raid the house and stop that crime from being committed.
Okay. Now we've heard from people that now the OSP initially they had said it was the OSP that when the OSP said if it was them they would have seen an insignia, and some would say in the name of national security operatives can just come to your house, maybe not because they have suspicion that a certain crime is being committed, but you could be picked up at any time to assist in investigations. In such cases, what does the Constitution say? What is the process that you have to tell me before you come, or you just show up at my gates and if I refuse to open, you just barge in?
The national security does not have to tell you that we are coming to your house. I mean, they don't have to probably call you or write a letter to you and tell you we are coming to your house to search your house. But what they are expected to do is that having arrived at your gate, whoever they see to be the caretaker of the said property, or where they see the individual himself, they will show the said warrant to him and say that we have the authorization to search your house in respect of A, B, C, or D. And once that particular warrant is shown you, you have no right to resist any such search as ordered.
What if they don't have a search warrant? Can I resist?
If they don't have a search warrant, yes, you have the right to stop them from raiding or searching your house. That is one thing every Ghanaian who's listening to me should have at the back of his mind. The police or those security agency has the right to just come and raid your house and say that they are from national security or whatever. This whole thing of national security is becoming a certain animal, which, when not properly tamed, will one day do us a lot of harm. And so let people do what is right. We are not in any way saying that when people have done wrong, they should be, as it were, protected, or they should have a certain cover, supposedly under the guise of the law. But what the law says must be respected at all times. Because you see, you can have a case where some rogue officials will just undertake to do certain things, when in actual fact they may not have had official approval of the very thing that they are supposed to be doing. You realize that for most times when there is a coup or some of these issues, all manner of grievous things are done, and then ultimately the one who happens to be the head of state or the head of the junta will be held responsible for those killings. And so, especially in a civil or democratic dispensation as we do have here, it will be better for all of us, for the national security people themselves, to let people respect them, to let people know that, yes, it is not as if when they are undertaking certain operations, they are doing that as a vendetta, but that they are acting as national security operatives whose main duty is to ensure that this country remains a very peaceful, or remains a peaceful country, and that persons who, for whatever reason, in fact, the law, are properly brought to book. But when they lose that particular respect, the citizenry, then the thinking is going to be that some rogue elements within a particular government are using this national security to, as it were, have a vendetta. You reckon that among those people who were seen, well, let me keep that information. I will not go there.
No, but the video is out. The picture is out, and Mr. Jakpa has been identified, and it was even said on the floor of Parliament by some of the members of Parliament.
Yes. So, for instance, the picture which showed Jakpa, right? That's not. I mean, it's not a good optic, right? Because here is Jakpa who was before the law court, right? For whatever, and then his matter, of course, a sort of appeal, had been, as it were, determined, and by those determined, and acquitted and discharged at the court of appeal. So when you immediately see such a person among national security group and leading or more or less participating in said raid, no matter how good intentioned the said search might be, the presence of Jakpa will raise certain suspicion. Is it that it is payback time? I hope you understand what I'm saying.
Yes, I do.
So now that they have even gone to the extent of saying that this whole thing was undertaken without a warrant, it does not, it does not give the national security the required image, the required that we should have of the said institution.
But
it is for all of us as Ghanaians, and they will have to behave in such a will continue to have faith and trust that whatever they are doing that in the interest of this country.
Surprisingly, in the suit, Jakpa's name is not there. But you said that without a search warrant, we shouldn't allow either a national security operative or police into our premises. Now, in this particular case, you know that it's very good, but you and I know we cannot stop them from doing that, because it's not as if it's just one person coming. They're coming in dozens, maybe 12, maybe 10. So they come to my house and I say, without a warrant, I won't allow you to. By the time I finish that, they've maybe pushed or shoved me aside and entered.
That is true. I know the situation. You cannot stop them from, as it were, illegally searching your house. If not also stop you, as in the case of Ofori, in also going to the court and to assert his right. I hope you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And that was the reason why I said that for persons who are going out for the way he managed affairs during his tenure as a finance minister, what he saying is not in respect of what he did during his tenure as a finance minister. He's saying that I am a Kenyan like you, and my rights to privacy, the right over my private property, cannot be trifled with. It appears that this is what the national security has done, and I will want at least the courts to assert my rights for me, and if possible, exact certain compensation for the kind of damage that has been done. I have read the rates and the reliefs that they are seeking. Yes, but you realize that in essence they are just talking the trespass and related issues. As for the image damage and others, that's a completely different ball game. The national security is not interested in whatever image which you think you have garnered internationally or locally. That is not their cup of tea. What they do is the work that they are supposed to do. But for the life of me, for most times, I just can't understand the sentiment of the national security, probably because I don't work there. But common sense tells me that if you are going to do certain things which you know will obviously meet some of these resistance, and especially when they are going to deal with these high-profile things, you do not just take to such careless approaches where you may not have a search warrant, things like that. But of course, you haven't heard the side of the national security. It is possible they did go there. They showed them the the warrant, but these guys are essentially coming out to say they were not shown anything. So we cannot just pass judgment and say that what the national security did was wrong. Let's also wait for national security gentlemen or women to come and also tell us their side of the story. But what I am saying essentially over the national security does not have the right to raid your home or search your house without an official search warrant. That one is wrong. They can only do so if they have cause to believe that there is a certain crime which is going to be undertaken over there or is being committed over there. In that case, they wouldn't need a search warrant.
Zakumi, very grateful that you